Good evening, Poe fans, and welcome back to Review Morgue. Jeannie, how's it
Dun,
going
dun.
tonight?
Well, it is a dreary night to be discussing such a dreary tale as we're going to be. It is
Yes,
very much in Tennessee, a stormy, rainy, ugh,
it was
just
a
one of those
dark and
perfect.
stormy night. That's not Poe,
Exactly.
but we'll take it.
Yes. Yes, we'll use it and take it. But yes, it's pretty good. I like it so far.
Oh, yeah. So, Jeannie, what movie are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, we did a little backwards of a couple years, not much. We went back to 1932 to a tale that people have the English version of marking it as the Eerie Tales, but it's not. It's marked English as the Living Dead.
Yes.
Now, it's German film, so you will have to watch it with the captions on, trust me. If you
Yes.
check out YouTube, you will find it, but you definitely need the captions. Now, I looked up the translation and I'm going to attempt it, but don't roast me if I butcher it too badly. But I'm just saying, it's unheimlich Gustafsson.
Okay.
So that's
I don't
that's
know
as close as I
German,
got.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
I did I didn't take I took Spanish in high school. What do I know in German? But yeah, that's the story we're going to talk about, and it's a mesh, seems to be, of not just Poe,
Hmm.
but a few other authors that we like. We have Robert Louis Stevenson, right? Is that
Yeah, and
is
that's
that the
it.
how he's
Yeah,
okay?
that's
I
it.
couldn't think of his name. Or no, I could think of Robert Lewis, but I always for some reason don't want to call him Stevenson. I don't know.
Yeah, forget the Stevenson. Yes, so Poe contributes the Black Cat
Mm-hmm.
and the system of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather. And then Robert Louis Stevenson contributes The Suicide Club, which is a short story in a
Yeah, and a
collection.
very interesting one.
Yeah, we found out it's a basically a trilogy of sorts, and it introduces basically Stevenson's detective, and it was written in 1878, and it ties in nicely to how the this movie ends, incorporating it into the film. Now, something else that I got a little bit out of, just a hint of, I know it wasn't intentional, but the post story William Wilson, because you have kind of that feeling of, it's definitely not a doppelganger. And we'll
Mhm.
introduce the characters in just a moment and talk about this. I'm going to save this and talk about it more when we're talking about the characters because it'll make more sense.
Mhm.
But I got a little bit of an essence of that. And I don't know if it was intentional or it just kind of just happened.
Well, and here's the hiccup for me
Hmm.
is that I know they weren't probably aiming to do this, but they did a lot of set that was alluding to Poe's works. You
Yes.
had the Pit and the Pendulum,
Oh,
the
yes, I heard
Cask of
about that one.
Amontillado.
Yep.
Um, let's see, there was one more that I got, and I can't remember what it was.
I'm looking at my notes because I wrote all these down. Yeah, because I had written down the pit and the pendulum, and
Hmm.
yes.
Cask of Amontillado. Oh, the Mask of the Red Death.
Hmm.
And oh, I think that was the only ones that just popped into my head when I was watching it that really stood out to me as set choices. To
Yeah,
where I'm like, okay, they may not be wanting to bring in the story, but
right.
they're definitely giving an illusion, not illusion, allusion to those words.
Illusion.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
A illusion, yes.
Absolutely. It's
So
not magic.
Nope. It's not magic. It's not an
Reference.
illusion. It's not a ghost in the machine either. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this film was made in 1932, and the
Hmm.
director was Richard Oswald, or if you want to give that German feel, Oswald.
That's it.
And he basically started making films in Germany around 1914. And
Hmm.
he did make a few films in America and in Britain as well as France. Mainly what he did was in Germany. And when the Nazis came in, he did flee and came to America. And I think that's how he ended up making a few films over here.
That would make sense. I mean, that
Yeah.
was a lot of the times after World War One, there was a lot of people that were leaving Poland and Germany and Austria and all those places because even after World War One, the Nazis were still a large presence in a lot of those countries.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it would make sense. I mean, why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the characters, the cast of this film, you had the main character who was the villain per se. He didn't
Hmm.
start out as a villain, but very quickly. And his picture is right above me or right beside me, I guess. He looks like he's about to hit me.
Yeah, it looks like he's coming after you.
Which is very apropos for the film. And so
Hmm.
his name was Paul Wegener, if you actually pronounce it German like.
Wegener, yes.
And throughout the film, just because of the heavy German accent, it sounded like they were calling him Murder, but his name is Mortar. And so, but that they don't really go into last name or anything about that. And
Mm-mm.
his wife's name was Betty in the film, which I thought was very interesting
Yeah,
Americanization of her name.
good old Betty.
And then the
I mean, why
other,
not?
yeah, and we won't give too much away, but Betty is not around very long, which you can kind of
Yeah.
imagine based on the stories that they used. But then the other major character, the actor's name is Harold Paulson, but he played the character Frank Briggs, who was a reporter, but he ended up almost acting like a detective, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that in my opinion, that was also an allusion to Poe
Yes,
and
I
his
agree.
critiques. And
Good
also a little
line.
bit to Dupine and a few of the others with the detectives and stuff
Yeah.
um because that's the one thing that really kind of bothered me for the whole thing
Hmm.
was I can understand why they made him a journalist because it kind of goes around the same avenue as a narrator
Yeah.
because they write the story and stuff. But it was just really interesting to me his character overall.
Yeah.
He was very static.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have murder, you know, or murder,
Yeah.
then because they both had to have each other by themselves.
They did.
Yeah, it was one of those to where okay, where is the other person on this? We need the other side. It's like Abbott Costello. You can't have Abbott without Costello.
Right. And I think that's kind of the vibe I was getting for William Wilson, because
Hmm.
again, they're two totally different people. They're not doppelgangers at all, but
Right,
without one, you don't have anything going on the screen. You have to have both
right.
because it's that cat and mouse the entire picture.
Yeah. And that's where I kind of got a lot of the Cask of Amontillado
Okay. Yeah.
because of Montesor and Fortunato. That
Hmm.
and where you got William Wilson, I got Cask
Okay. That's kind of
because I
cool.
kept I kept seeing where, at one point it's like I really wanted the journalist to get it because, I'm just, he was bugging me so bad. I was like, come on. And then the other part is like mother. I'm like, oh, he really just needs to go. He
Yeah.
creepy. So
Yes,
and it's the
what?
same vibe. It's the same vibe I get from Cask. You
Yeah.
know, every time I read it, one minute I'm like voting for Fortunato, and the other I'm voting for Montresor. So it's like, that's kind of where I got that for.
That
It's
no, that
like
that
that
makes
makes.
total sense. It
Hmm.
does. And the way I kind of and when I was watching this, I always take notes throughout the whole thing, and then I pause it if I, or rewind it if I miss any of the captions.
Hmm.
And for me, the way they set this up with the three stories, it was Act One, the Black Cat, Act Two, Tar and Feather, and then Act Three, the Suicide Club. And
Yes.
I really like that because it blended each other, all three of them together very nicely. And the one thing that at the beginning of the film, it it was very slow, but not enough build up for the actual Black Cat story. It was like very true to form of what Poe wrote, but you didn't have that lead in to the Black Cat of, he didn't like the Black Cat. That was very obvious, but the which was a good thing that they didn't have like hanging the cat or anything like that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. The cat, do we want to give the spoiler about the cat?
The cat's not hurt. Let's
Yes,
just put it that way.
I think that's a great way to say it. Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, is anyone, especially cat people like us, and especially as adamant as I'm about any animal getting hurt,
Right. Right.
I still have not watched The Horse Whisperer because I couldn't make it past the first, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, for everybody watching, that's the one thing. The cat is not hurt.
Yes.
So
Hopefully
you
he just died of a natural causes in his own acting,
exactly.
little actor world, little cat
Yes,
world.
his own acting, his own agent hopefully let him live a long, healthy life.
Yes, but he was a
Um,
great actor and
yeah, he was. He was
that
very docile. I kept thinking to myself, good Lord, what drugs have they got that cat on?
yeah.
I was
But
like, okay.
but just true to form of the black cat, except for like I said, just it didn't have the cat being hanged or anything like that.
Hmm.
So it just went straight into the cat did something. Because Mortar didn't like the cat, he took everything out on the wife. And
Yeah,
that's
poor
when,
Betty.
yeah, and I will say the cinematography and the what's the best word? Special effects, I guess, of the shadow play of the silhouette of him killing her rather than showing him physically killing her. And I don't feel like
Hmm.
we're giving any spoilers because if you've read The Black Cat, you know this.
Yeah, everybody already knows what
Yeah.
happens. So,
But I thought that was very well done, even though I would have liked a lot more lead in into the film. And I think I was I was thinking that this was going to be mainly the Black Cat story rather than the other two added in. So I was thinking to myself when I first started watching it, Jeannie, I told you earlier, I was like, we're going to be done in like 10 more minutes. It's like
hmm.
this other, hour and 10 minutes of film.
Yeah, and I guess one thing is that the Black Cat, just the synopsis that they introduced,
Hmm.
was nothing more than like the introduction paragraph of an essay to me.
Yeah, that's a good
It
way to,
was just a
yeah,
hook
yeah, it
because
was.
it just built up this guy and what was going to happen for the rest of the story.
Yeah,
Because it didn't, I mean, the only thing that they kept saying throughout the movie was just he was a murderer
yeah,
because he killed his wife.
right.
But after the first time when they found Betty, they never mentioned Betty again.
Right. Yes.
So it's
She
like,
disappeared
well,
into the wall. Yeah.
exactly. So that was the introduction paragraph. We don't need to talk about it again. It's done.
Mhm.
But one of the things that we discovered, like you were talking about on IMDb, if you look this film up, it
Mm-hmm.
has it listed as horror and comedy.
Yes.
Well, I can
Bizarre.
actually say it's more bizarre than it is comedy, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because I wasn't laughing. I was just sitting there going, what the, you know, it just didn't make any sense to me. Now, I will
Oh,
say the comedic factor had to be the fight scenes. That's all I gotta
yes.
say.
Yes.
That's the only thing
They
I want to say about comedy on this thing.
they were typical of the time, definitely. And to me, if you're going to call this comedy at all, it's definitely dark. I mean, there's no way around that.
Oh yeah.
And
Now, when you say that it's typical of the time, all I want to think about is that poor Errol Flynn. You just made him roll over in his grave. Because I mean, yes, it wasn't the greatest of what we see
no,
now,
yeah.
but even with Errol Flynn, that man knew how to swing a sword.
Yes, he did. Yes, I agree with you on that.
So these were nowhere near.
I'm talking before Errol Flynn. This is like, just
Yeah, I know, but I'm just
basic
saying
kind
it's
of.
like
This would be a B movie of the 30s, in my opinion.
this would be more of a D movie in my
Okay.
opinion, but okay,
Yeah.
if
All
that's
right. We'll
if
take the
it,
average of a C.
yeah, exactly. We'll give it a C average.
Oh,
But the one thing I did think was interesting is the introduction of the wax museum. It wasn't
yes.
specifically a wax museum,
Yes.
but that was the oddest thing ever. Is like he just randomly shows up and it's like it's built like a carnival fun house kind of thing,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
but it's mostly just a wax museum. And I'm not giving away what type of wax museum
Right.
because
Yeah, let's keep that
this
as a, we don't
yeah,
want to
this
spoil
movie
it.
you need to really experience it to experience it.
Yes.
But the one thing I do want to point out is that the early of at the house at the very beginning during the whole Black Cat synopsis,
Mm-hmm.
there was like two clocks. I don't know if you noticed it. There was one actually that was built into the cement wall
Yes, I saw that
that
and I
just
thought that
had
was very
the four
odd.
numbers and then the thing.
Yeah.
And then there was another one that was like on a tower, but
Mm-hmm.
it was lit up.
Yes.
And it was very odd that there was two of these clocks on his house.
Yeah. But
But
then
one thing I do want to say is how the crap did they miss that big hole in the basement at the very beginning?
I know. Oh,
He locks the door on him in the basement, and then all of a sudden, the journalist finds this giant hole in the side of the wall and crawls out.
oh, I know. Yeah, that
The
was,
inconsistency of that bothered me. So,
and that could
but
be
yeah,
considered comedic, I guess, too.
yeah, that would be one word for it.
Yeah, definitely so. And I agree with you on the whole thing with, Mortar running out, escaping from the murder scene and running into the wax museum because I was thinking, I mean, the first thing I thought of was House of Wax with Vincent Price.
Hmm.
And I was like, this obviously predates that. And I was thinking to myself, is there another version of House of Wax that was early on, and maybe the director or the producers were paying an
Hmm.
homage to House of Wax. Like if there was an
True.
original one. I'm gonna look that up because I don't remember. I meant to look it up and see.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that either. But I did enjoy that aspect of it. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't think it had anything to do with the story or needed to be included,
No,
but
and
it was an interesting side note.
I
And like I said,
agree.
it was a fun house. It's kind of
Yeah,
like a fun house effect. And that's kind of the way I was feeling at that point of the movie, going,
yeah.
I think I am stuck in a Twilight Zone fun house type of thing here.
I am not seeing, yeah, Vincent Price House of Wax was 1953. I'm not seeing anything
Mhm.
before that. And so I know that carnivals and things like that were popular in the early 1900s. So it may have just been a cool gimmick for Mortar to escape to, just to add some flair, especially with things that happened in the house, the wax museum.
Yeah, and this one, because where they had him when he introduced himself to the police that showed up,
Right.
he told them that he was an inventor.
Yes. Yes.
Well, in this particular fun house, there was a lot of, how should I say, it was more than just statues there. They actually did things. They were reenacting the horror part of each one of the sets. And
Yeah.
I won't give away what they are because that was a very interesting. Now, the history person in me was happy, going, "Ooh, I like it." Um, Still weird as crap, but I like it.
Absolutely.
So
And
it,
yeah, go ahead, Jeannie, and
no, I was just gonna
yeah.
say, I think that was where the tie-ins was because they were trying to tie in some bit of the the invention type thing, I guess I want to say.
Kind of connect,
Because that was,
yeah, Mortimer
yeah,
being an inventor and just
yeah,
kind of like, because he found it very fascinating when he was in there, when he realized where
yes.
he was. Yeah.
That's what I was going for. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And then it was like it slowly moved for a tad bit where he
Mhm.
gets hurt and moves on to a doctor's office and realizes I felt like, did you feel like it was a hospital or like just like a clinic, or like what did you think?
Well, the one thing that I got a feeling for is that it was set up as a doctor's office,
Yeah.
but it was also a hospital because you have to remember in those times, most places that when they walked in, it was always set up with a doctor's office, but also a, what do they call it, a surgery
Yeah.
next to it. So
Hmm.
it always had that
Yeah.
uh, double edge.
Hmm.
And I think that's where he kind of got his idea to move on to the next thing. Because they definitely pushed that a lot. I mean, they had it
Oh
written on the
yeah.
wall and they kept panning to it, not once, not twice, but like three times.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like where he fell into that next act, as we called it.
Right,
So,
yeah, where it segued in and he was taken
mhm,
to a different facility, and Briggs, the journalist, had gone to the
mhm,
police, and then basically it went from there where he was going to track this man down, even
mhm,
though he was a journalist. I guess kind of also kind of from the beginning, I guess one thing we should mention is that he was driving down the road when the scream of the wife being killed happened.
mhm.
And that's how this whole thing started. He
Right.
sent his lady friend on in the car, and he stopped there to investigate because he felt like something was wrong. And so
Yes.
it was his duty to find this man.
Well, the one thing that I thought was interesting is the way that the movie started with this portrayal.
Hmm.
It made it out that he was actually police,
Yeah,
is what I got from it, because when he
yeah,
told her that, he had to go check it out because it was his duty,
yeah.
when he used those words, now we're reading the caption of those words because I don't speak German and neither
And
does Carmen.
and whatever kind of loose translation it was, yeah.
Exactly. So it wasn't until later that let's call him an investigative reporter instead of just a
I
journalist,
like that. Yeah.
because that would fit more than what his character was doing
Hmm.
rather than just a typical journalist, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was confused at the beginning because I honestly thought he was a cop. And then when the cop showed up, I was going, Okay, so he's not a police officer. And it was till later that he introduced himself as a journalist. So it was
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So, and it's in Act Two where you start going, okie dokie.
Oh, yes.
This is a little on the freaky side, but it's like a party time.
And I will say this, I'm glad I didn't know at that moment that it
Hmm.
was going into another Poe story with the system of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather,
Hmm.
because I recognized it and was like,
Yes.
oh, yes, this is such a good story. And I got excited that, I was like, oh, this is great because I don't think I've ever seen any kind of adaptation on film with
Hmm.
that story. And so I was like, this is awesome.
Well, I enjoyed it because it was, let me say loosely, the word enjoy.
Okay.
That's not exactly what I would describe, but it's the closest thing that I can get.
Okay.
Um, but just the idea behind this act was ingenious
Yeah,
because it was the focal body point of the story, in my opinion, that truly got you engrossed into the story.
I agree with you. I think some of the best acting, because you
Mm-hmm.
had a wealth of people around the dinner table,
Yes.
the players from the asylum, and
Yes.
yeah, it hooked me in. Like it hooked me in seeing that black cat at the beginning, but then
Mm-hmm.
this really like it pulled you into the story.
Um, yes, this style of acting in this particular avenue was more than what we had seen before in the other
Hmm.
movies because everything was always more static, more block. This, with the level of acting that you were getting and the grouping that you had,
Hmm.
it was definitely more fluid
Yeah,
and it felt more natural.
it did. Yeah.
Now, there was one guy, I have to give him props. He kept saying, you've been chasing me, you've been chasing me. I'm tired of you chasing me, and having a knife in his hand. And I'm going, dude, I feel your pain, but come on, that's just creepy.
I
And they
know.
kept, I mean, they kept passing the knife around. What I thought was funny.
And I just have to say, I'm going to go grab this because it'll make more sense when I do it. Hold on a
Hmm.
second. I'm going to get a prop.
Okie dokie. Go for the prop. Okay, it looks like you're getting it out of the cat's behind. That was not fun.
So they did, so they kept holding the knife like this rather than
Uh-huh.
this. And so I just
Yeah.
thought it was funny that they were holding it like the man was holding it like this. And then even
Mhm.
when Briggs eventually gets the knife, he holds it like this. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, that's comedic.
Yeah. It's like, well, and that added on to it because remember, this is taking place in an asylum. And
Right,
all these
right.
people are not, playing with a full deck.
Right. And we don't
Sorry,
want to
I
give
was
too
punning with
many.
the Act Three.
Yes, well, I
But
don't
I'm
want
just
to give
saying,
too many, but yeah. Oh, nice one, Jeannie.
I'm not giving any more specifics than that, but
Right. Yeah. But
it is what it is.
if you've read that story from Poe, you already know what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the black cat. You can't not know
Yeah.
what it is. So,
Exactly.
but it's now this is the part where I felt there was a total disconnect
Hmm.
and then a reconnect. It's like they lost it and it took them a little bit to find it again
Yeah.
because it was like suddenly I'm not watching the same movie. I'm watching a different movie.
Exactly. And
It was odd.
that's why I felt this was definitely three acts meshed
Hmm.
or melted into each other, and they had to figure out a way to connect all three rather than having here's part one, here's part two, here's part three.
But and that's the thing. I don't think they would have had it that way if they had written it better.
Hmm.
it's like they cut off that act two
Yeah.
with the tar what was it called?
The
The
system
feather.
Car and Professor Feather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh it's like they just ended that story because Mordler just kind of was able to elude again.
Hmm.
And then the next thing you know, it's like it's not talking about him anymore.
Yeah.
And you're going, wait a minute, what happened to this story? So we launched into a new story, and
Hmm.
it's like, wait a minute, there has to be a tie here somewhere,
Yeah. And
but they totally missed it.
yes. And I'm going to add in this too. And I know you had said this or when we were talking about this earlier. So the way Paul Wegner, is acting throughout this film, he really is a chameleon. He
Mm-hmm.
is so many different faces. He's so many different characters really from the beginning before he kills his wife until the very end, and we're not going to tell you exactly what happens at the very end, but
Mm-hmm.
it really, to me, because they pulled in for the act three Robert Louis Stevenson's story, The Suicide Club, to me it his character also gave off a Jekyll Hyde vibe as well.
It did to a certain extent.
Hmm.
To me, it was more of a multiple personality
Yeah.
aspect of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it wasn't a complete change. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
It's like
He knew
he
who he
just,
was the whole time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he just changed his appearance more than he did anything and his mannerisms.
Yes.
So yes, that's where I can see the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type aspect of it. But at the other part, it's he was very much, as you said, a chameleon and able to blend in and
Mhm.
change his demeanor to
Yeah.
fit what he needed.
Wherever setting he was in.
Exactly. And for
Yeah.
whomever he needed to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's why with the third aspect of it, Briggs gets drawn in yet again. Um, And
Yes.
this is where it goes, what in the crap? Because, we just
Right.
like you looked up Robert Louis Stevenson. This is one of the works I've never read.
Me
However, I
either.
have seen little excerpts of people that's done like shorts or something and videos and TV and stuff like that
Hmm.
of this particular story. But
Okay.
at the same time, I'm going, why are we talking about this?
Yeah. When I first started thinking, because I don't remember, was Robert Louis Stevenson's name on the credits with Pose? I don't
Not that I,
remember it.
no, it wasn't.
I don't remember it being there. So I'm thinking, what Poe story is this?
Hmm.
Is this totally just their own creation to finish off the film? Because I
Yeah.
started Googling at this point and going, what? And I couldn't find anything. And then I started looking at just the title of the film and just the background of it. And that's where that came up.
Yeah, the only credits they give for writing on here
Hmm.
is to, of course, the director,
Hmm.
Richard Oswald, then Edgar Allan Poe, and then Heinz Goldberg.
Okay.
Those are the only three writers that they give any kind of credit to for the actual film. So
Right.
I am kind of shocked that Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, wait a minute. If you click it on to the next page, it
Okay.
actually does say Robert Louis Stevenson's story, The Suicide Club. And
Okay.
then
Okay.
Heno Zamar, okay, Geno Jamari as Eugene Zamari. I have no idea.
That's okay.
That's under writing credits. I don't know why that would be under writing credits because I don't know that story. If there's a story of Eugen Zamari,
Yeah, I
and
don't
I'm probably
know.
butchering that horribly, but
And
okay.
well, and I was going to say, I'm sure that it could be like the screenplay writers as well.
Could be, very much so. But yeah, on just the main living dead of the IMDb, you can't see my
Mhm.
phone. Whee!
Yeah.
Sorry. It only has those three listed, but if you
Okay.
go to the
Click
next
further.
one,
Gotcha.
yes, then it'll
That's
show that one.
that's interesting because you would think that they would have given Robert Louis Stevenson a little bit more credit
Credit.
because
Yeah.
that last act is very pivotal and that kept me very interested because it was fascinating.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's the one where the only thing in Poe that I saw anything that would be related to him
Hmm.
would be the Cask of Amontillado, the entrance thing where he's walking in,
Yeah.
kind of like, and then when they, uh, I won't tell the full thing, but when he gets in there, it
Yeah.
very much reminds me of when Fortunato gets walled up.
Yeah.
That's not what happens, but it's the illusion of it.
Yeah. Oh,
Ah,
absolutely.
and then the pit and the pendulum is
When they're in
very
the secret
prominent in this
room.
part.
Right.
Yeah, in the secret room.
Yeah.
So, but the whole aspect is very interesting. The whole story behind it in
Hmm.
this act is very interesting. But like I was saying earlier, this was very disconnected from everything else.
Yes.
It's
And
like a whole different story.
right. And this was from the timeline of the film, this was
Mhm.
6 months after the original murder of Mortar's wife, Betty. And just because I was trying to pay attention because of just dates and
Mhm.
things that were shown, because the Frank Briggs got the letter from the police that there was these murders that were happening and they appeared to be suicides and they couldn't figure out what it was, and Briggs just had this gut feeling that Mortar was involved in it.
Now, if I remember correctly on the movie, there were 12 missing persons,
That's right. Yes, it was.
and they had
Yes.
found one
Yes.
that looked like it was a suicide, but they were looking at it as a murder. And
Yes.
then they were trying to figure out where the other ones, and then he says something to that effect to the police
Hmm.
when they brought him in because he was covering the story.
Right. Right.
That, are we going to look at, are we going to be expecting to get more of these suicides?
Right.
So,
And
yes, that was the
yeah.
intro into that next part.
Yeah, and that I thought that was really fascinating. And again, you have a third variation of Mortar of his
Hmm.
morph morphing, or however you want to say it. His
Yeah, his growth.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It just kind of because at the very beginning, and this is what got me, is he was one of these that you would think of these crazy scientist type person
Yeah,
that would hide in the basement and be creating all this kind of stuff. So you get that feel of him with the crazy lab coat. He doesn't have a lab coat, but I'm just saying, the crazy lab coat like Dr. uh from Back to the Future. Dr. Brown.
yeah,
Just blanked on that name for some reason. It gave you that Dr. Brown feel.
yeah.
But then all of a sudden you're going, that's not the same guy
No.
as it keeps developing in each of the next fuse. And then at the very end, the one you end up with is totally exact opposite of the
Yeah.
one you started with.
Yeah, because the very beginning, like you said, Jeannie, he is in the basement. He's making his, appeared to be like toys and things like that, and his other
Hmm.
whatever kind of inventions he was coming up with. And I remarked earlier to you, his eyes were crazy. He just
Hmm.
had
Just like in that
crazy
picture behind you.
eyes. And yeah,
Yeah.
just like him, over, whoops,
By the way.
over there,
Yeah.
right
Yeah,
there.
there.
It's the opposite, so it's hard to
Oh yes,
make with my
that's
finger.
the
Yeah,
mirror of the.
absolutely. And then by the end, you have this. refined man and totally different demeanor. I was just like taken aback.
Yeah, and it was very well done
Mm-hmm.
on his part.
Yeah.
So I did feel that he was very well chosen for this
Roll.
particular, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah. I
Uh
agree.
so I just he was a great actor, is all I gotta say is, but he definitely gave me the vibe of the Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
So, Charlie Chaplin's been a great, I love watching Charlie Chaplin. So,
Oh yeah. You can't get any better than those films.
yeah. It did have, in my opinion, a very lackluster ending. It was
Well,
it was good, but it wasn't great.
to me, the very end had a very, the last scene is what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
It had that was a very Twilight Zone ending with kind of the
Hmm.
irony, which I loved.
Yeah.
That part I really
Yeah.
loved, but the ending before of what happens to Briggs, what happens to Mortar, that was a little bit lackluster. I mean, there was some twists that were kind of nice, but they were very predictable.
Yeah. That's one thing I guess is what I really didn't enjoy about it is that at one point, it was kind of interesting because you really didn't know how they were going to play it, but
Right.
then it gets so predictable that it kind of got boring,
Yeah.
and that's where they lost me.
Yeah. I wasn't too bored. There were a few parts that I was kind of like, okay, come on with it. Come on with it. But at the end, I was ready for the film to be finished just because
Hmm.
to me, there was no, like, in a more modern film, he would have been caught very quickly.
Oh yeah, this would not have been.
It
This
would have
wouldn't
been
have
that 20
lasted
minute
past the
movie that I was,
first 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes, and they show up and they find his wife in the wall. He'd have been done for.
oh yeah. Yeah.
But
But
I guess it it was I can say, and I will say this, that I would like to go back and watch it now without the captions,
okay.
without the subtitles on.
Okay.
With if there was a way that I could turn off the English subtitles and just watch it in German,
Yeah.
since now I know the basis of what's being said and everything,
Right.
because that's one of the things that kept drawing me away when I was trying to watch the body language and watch the actual movie.
Right.
I kept having to like
Read.
split my attention, and I really didn't like that.
Yeah, and it is harder watching a movie with captions, especially if
Mhm.
it is a different language. And I think sometimes you do miss things because of that, and it takes you that much longer if you have to rewind it and rewatch it because you now you know what it says, but now you need to watch it and knowing what it says. And I think
Exactly.
that takes away from the viewing experience and really enjoying the movie or not enjoying the movie, depending on if you like it or not.
Yeah. And you miss a lot of the body language and a lot of
Hmm.
the setup, and I can't even say the fight scenes because you can happily miss those. Uh in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Well, and so, okay, so with you bringing that up, so would this have been a better movie silent with just some of the cards?
honestly,
Now that
I
you
would
brought
have to,
that up,
yeah, honestly, I would say no
okay.
because ow, sorry, my cat just, reached out and clawed me for some reason. Wasn't doing anything. Uh, just
No
stop it.
cats
I'm
were
trying to
harmed in
think.
this film,
Yeah,
Freebird.
no cats harmed in the film, Freebird, so you can leave the claws out.
Oh,
No, if this had been made as a silent movie, I think it would actually have been worse
okay.
because this is why. Even though the acting was a lot better in some aspects because of the people you had and the more people you had in the movies, but
Mhm.
like I was talking to you earlier, the actor of Briggs and the actor of Murder,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna call him Murder.
yeah.
Uh,
I'm calling him Mordor, like Lord of the Rings. The
Mordor. Okay.
the
The
I know.
Eye. Woo.
Yes.
Okay. Sauron. Okay.
Well, he does have
Mordor. Mordor was the
crazy,
place. Sauron was the bad
crazy
guys.
eyes, crazy eyes.
Well, actually, in that thing, he looks like he does have one eye up there at the top, like a
Kind of
cyclops.
does. Okay. All right. Let's not.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sidetrack. But no, because they are so static by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and even at the part when they're doing the fighting,
Yeah.
it is, I mean, that would be the one thing that would be comical,
Yeah.
but it's not ha ha funny comical. It's like embarrassing comical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hate, and for any of these listeners or watchers that may have liked the movies Jackass, forgive me, Johnny Knoxville. This is just my own opinion. Jackass is just stupid humor
Mm-hmm.
that I get nothing out of. And that's kind of like where this was at. It wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't practiced. It was just like a bad cat fight where nobody was doing anything except just bobbing and weaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just, and I think if it had been a silent movie with just the cards, it would have been a huge disservice to this.
Yeah. Well, I just,
Uh,
you brought that up. And so I was like thinking to myself, okay, hold on. If you turn off all the sound, how would it really be? And so that's why I wanted you to answer that.
well, now that's a different question because if it's just without any kind of wording
Mm-hmm.
and just turned off everything and no cards, no cue cards or anything
Yeah.
like that,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a jumble of crazy of three different parts
Yeah.
that made no sense to go together.
Yeah.
But in the end, it would still, you would be watching, in my opinion, three sets of a short story
Yeah.
instead of one movie that connected.
I think you're totally right about that because
Yeah.
the transitions to me took longer than they should have, but
Hmm.
not in a bad way, but they if it was a silent film, it would that would have taken away so much from these three
Hmm.
acts stories.
Yeah. I mean, even having to cut my attention in half by reading the captions,
Yeah.
I still I still got more from the story. And the
Mhm.
thing that like I was saying, that I want to go back and rewatch it without having subtitles on, just so I can see if there's more set, if there's
Yeah.
more illusion in there rather than just with what they were saying,
Right.
more with what I was seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I would like to go back and rewatch it.
That makes perfect sense. And one other thing too about this film, was there any music in any of the scenes? I don't really remember any music.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
In
I
the
blocked it out.
second one, remember they had the band at the dinner.
True. I'm talking about just the background music.
No, background
Yeah,
music, no, but
yeah,
and I think they did that on purpose
yeah,
because if they had background music, it would have taken away from those scenes where they had introduced music
yeah. Yeah, I
because
remember
there
that.
was, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that music from the second part, But yeah, I was thinking, I just thought about it and I was like, hold on, there was no creepy music when, the death of Betty happened. There,
Oh no.
even during the fight scenes, which is very unusual. And maybe I have not watched, I don't think, any German films before. Well, I know I have, but I don't remember music being a centerpiece for it to kind of help blend the scene together or give the ambiance. And so that's just an interesting thing to think about.
Well, and also remember this early times also they did not use the background noise, and probably because they didn't have the technology to
Very
put it
true.
in there.
Or the money, or
Uh,
the money.
Yeah, the
Hmm.
money or the technology or somebody who could run the technology.
Right. Exactly.
So there was a lot of differing aspects that I'd say made a made a choice in that, whether they had it or not. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, I think if they had put background music, it would have taken away from it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think so. Just thinking
Yeah.
about it, because the movie was very stark, but in
Yes.
in a raw way that really brought out, like you said, the body language, the
Hmm.
characters. They had to rely on pure talent
Now, I think
and setting and
if
setting.
it was going to be redone in
Yeah.
today's world,
Mm-hmm.
I think they would need the background music. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they need to overindulge in it,
Yeah.
but they definitely would need to add in that radio aspect
Mm-hmm.
of it, with the sound effects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. Well, I think, Jeannie, it's time to do our Raven calls and our Black Cat hisses.
I like that. I like it. I'm ready. I'm ready.
So do you want
Freebird,
to
are you ready?
go? Do you want to go first?
Now you go first on this one. I think I went first last
I
time.
think you did too. And so,
Freebird's glaring into the side of my head, so I must be making sure I tell the right ones.
oh,
Go
so
ahead.
just thinking about the viewing experience, everything we've kind of talked about, I think I generally did really like this film more than I thought I was going to, because when I saw
Mhm.
like the the Paul Wagner right up here,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm doing the
you're
wrong one
close.
right
There you
there.
go.
Um, and I was like, he looks so crazy. He's just crazed. I'm like, how is he really going to be throughout this film? I kind of
Hmm.
maybe prejudged a little bit and I shouldn't have, but I went into it thinking I was not going to like it, and I ended up really liking this. Um,
Hmm.
the main reason is because even though there was not a buildup for the Black Cat, the storyline was pure Poe, and they kept it true to form. They did not, they kept some things out of it, but everything
Hmm.
that happened with that little part of her death and the Black Cat, it was Poe. They did not adapt it. They didn't take license with it, and that I loved. And kind of the same thing with the system of Dr. Tor and Professor Feather. Same thing. They left things out of the story that they didn't include, but the essence of the story was there, and it was brilliantly done. And so, for a film in 1932 in Germany rather than the US where Poe is from, it
Hmm.
really kind of makes you wonder, how did these filmmakers like Poe? Did how much it seems to me that they paid so much homage to him with keeping the purity of Poe there, that they had to really appreciate Poe as a master of the macabre.
Hmm.
So I'm going to give it 5 Raven calls.
Ooh,
Yes.
nice.
And so with Black Cat hisses, I'm probably going to go with three. And
Okay.
that's because I think, and I've said this before, the transitions were lacking, and Briggs' character could have been developed so much more. And part of it may just be that particular actor. If they had had a different
Okay.
actor, maybe. Um,
Hmm.
but I just think that those were the things that really resonated with me. And it started off a tiny bit slow, but there were some intricacies with the wax museum that I really liked, where it all tied together at the end. And I don't know, it just overall it was a good film. That's why I'd say five versus three.
Not bad, not bad. I would have to say that for Raven Cause, I'm gonna have to just go with four.
Okay.
I did I did enjoy the movie. However, I enjoyed more of each story
Hmm.
than I did as the whole thing overall.
Okay.
Because each one was lackluster in certain things, in my opinion,
Yeah.
that could have been done better, could have, raised it up more. But overall, it did keep my interest through the whole thing, which is, even with me reading subtitles,
Right.
was an astronomical attention getter, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because if you can hold my attention while I'm reading subtitles, then there's something good about this. And most of the time, it may have just been me going, "What in the?"
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, it still caught my attention. However, I'm going to go only two black cat hisses
Oh, wow.
because here's the thing, for the things that they could fix
Uh-huh.
to make it better, there wasn't that much that was totally bad,
Okay.
in my opinion. The
Yeah.
only thing that I truly cringed at was the fight scenes.
Yes, we
I
definitely
do.
tell that.
Yes, that's one thing. And the second thing is the, like you were saying earlier, the transitions.
Yeah.
If they had developed the transitions more and had taken away the I mean, they could have kept the fight scenes in, but given it more a realistic feel.
Yeah. Maybe they needed to take some classes on how to do fights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you have two actors who have no clue about how to throw a punch, how to grab somebody, anything like that, which you
Right.
have to understand back in those days when they're just developing real life, in your face films,
Right.
not a lot of people had a lot of practice in that area.
That
So,
is very true.
yeah, so that's why I only give it two because
Okay.
as the four, they could improve enough to make it to the six.
Yeah.
In the Black Cat Hisses, I only see that they only did two things bad.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm only making it two Black Cat Hisses.
Okay. I think that's fair.
So I would just suggest for anyone that watches the film to watch it first with the subtitles and
Yes.
then go back and watch it again without the subtitles.
Yeah.
Because I think you can get a better world round view of the
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah.
And it may change your ideas about certain things, but I do like how they did not take a lot of creative lessons when it went for the stories,
Hmm.
but they took enough to where they made it not so where you're mad at them because they screwed it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with you on that. They did, and again, this has made me add The Suicide Club by
Hmm.
Stevenson to my reading list because I'm very fascinated with the story based on this movie.
Yeah, it definitely got your attention and it did mine too. So yeah, I might have to look that up too myself.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a really cool film to look at and talk about. Jeannie, what
Yes.
is our next film we're going to be doing?
Oh, well, the next
Month.
one, since we did the Black Cat before we did this one
Yes.
accidentally.
Got a little out of order, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. We were only a couple years out of whack.
Same,
So,
same decade.
yeah, same decade. But the next one is 1935, and this is next, and I think this actually works out well too,
Yeah.
because we didn't want to do back to back Karloff and
Go see.
Lugosi.
Yeah.
So this one actually is Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, 1935, The Raven.
Yay. I've seen that one and I'm
Hmm.
liking it. So,
Yes, so we've got a brilliant surgeon with a morbid obsession for torture. Hey, sounds right up my alley. Um,
oh,
I'm just saying. But
oh
yeah,
my
so
goodness.
I think one thing we cut it off because as much as I love Karloff and as much as I love Lugosi, you kind of don't want to saturate
Or
the
stimulate.
viewers. Yeah, stimulate because
Oh,
boy,
have something
some
in
of those are going, woo, yeah.
yeah, yeah, because they're two of the best, definitely.
Yes, for
For
that time period.
yes, for original horror,
Hmm.
definitely.
So that's going to be it. We're going to fly with the Raven.
Yes, awesome, awesome. And we just want to say, thank you again for all of your support, for listening and watching all of our different styles of our episodes. And
Yes.
definitely subscribe to YouTube, Spotify. We have a newsletter you can get on our website, 6degreesofpo.com. We actually have a Patreon. You get extra content, you get puzzles and gifts depending on what tier you're on. So definitely check out all of these things. But the best thing
Hmm.
you can do is subscribe to Spotify and subscribe to YouTube. Definitely. Follow
Yep.
us on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
Yeah. And you can check out all our wonderful avenues of Poe.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so with that, we
We
are
are
Poe.
out.